Hey everybody, it's your friend Aman, startup founder based in Japan, usually. Right now I am visiting India, and this was a park that you just saw early in the morning. It's like 6:39 a.m. Um, where I am at the moment. So today's video is about the concept of turning pro, as in professional, turning professional, and you know how the long way, the long, the slow way is the fast way of achieving goals and visions and so on. And the reason now, what do I mean by turning pro? If you're somebody who has struggled with goals and if you have struggled with something even as simple as waking up early, um, if you have struggled with stuff like being lost and dejected about what should you do, what should you work on, you know, uh, nothing seems to be feeling. I mean, you're working, but like nothing seems to be going your way. Uh, then I guess the concept of turning pro could help. And the concept is actually very simple, right? It's and it comes from a book called Turning Pro. I highly recommend it. It's by Stephen Pressfield, who is actually a fiction author. He's a fiction author, but he's also become equally or maybe more famous because of his non-fiction works. And his non-fiction works are about his creative struggles, right? In his creative career, basically. So he was, procrastinating on his non-fiction books, on his fiction books. He was procrastinating on, showing his work to publishers. He's a really old guy, by the way. And he was, taking up other jobs to hide from his creative work. He had poor habits, and he even struggled financially for a long time, even after being a professional fiction writer, right? And so he's seen the whole spectrum, basically, of the misery of artists of all kinds, whether they're entrepreneurs or writers or painters or whatever, right? And since he's seen everything and he's learned, as many of us in those creative professions have to learn eventually, how do you make decisions on a day-by-day basis when success is not guaranteed, when you have severe resistance from your inner self-doubt and procrastination and whatnot, and procrastinating and all these demons of sorts that hold you back, all these excuses that we have that hold us back from doing our work, right? And all these excuses that keep us in bad habits, like not going to bed on time, not waking up early, not eating right, not exercising, I'll do it tomorrow, and all that good stuff, right? So, of course, I can't tell you everything about the book, but I can tell you what's worked for me. And I'll take the examples not from my business, but I'll take the examples from judo and from my lifelong battle against to build a habit of waking up early. I think I've been fairly consistent recently. So I have, and I think I finally cracked the code on waking up early, if that makes sense. And the reason why I feel that way, I've had certain periods before where I woke up early and then I didn't anymore. But the reason why it feels like I've cracked the code is because this time it really feels different. And I might eat my words later, but for now I genuinely believe that this is it feels very different this time. And this time I think I've made a mental breakthrough, which makes getting up easier over time. So if that's something you want to do, that's might. So I'm basically going to use these two stories, okay, my experience in judo and waking up early, to hammer home the point of turning pro. Okay. So let's begin with a core mindset. So the essential concept of turning pro is about your habits and how you see your work. Okay. Now the amateur. So what's the difference between an amateur doctor and a professional doctor? An amateur, sports person and a professional sports person. Well, the biggest thing that differentiates the amateur from the professional is that their work, the professional doctor's work, doesn't depend on, oh, I had a bad day, right? If you're going to see your doctor, you don't care if he had a bad day or she had a bad day. You want her to be on the ball, sharp as a tack, right? Very professional, and give you the best service and the best treatment that you deserve, regardless of what's going on, right? And ideally, you expect them to show up and not be like, oh, I woke up early today, late today, or oh, my dog ate my homework, stuff like that, right? That's number one. And I'll don't feel like I am scolding you by saying this, right? I'm gonna explain. I'm guilty of many of these things, but just a conceptual difference, right? A theoretical, practical, whatever. So that's one thing. You do your work regardless of how you feel, right? You feel tired? Well, guess what? You're a professional surgeon. There's going to be 36-hour surgeries. There's going to be, 18-hour surgeries, 15-hour surgeries, right? You sometimes have 2-day surgeries. Once in a blue moon, you'll have a really complex one. And, there are pictures on the internet. If you look up, you'll find where, there were literally surgeries where you had a team of doctors taking turns to sleep for an hour, half an hour, whatever, and then showing up back to keep pounding, keep going, right? Or else the kid would die, right? If you're going to a concert, you want the musician to give you your money's worth, right? You don't want them to show up and maybe some rock stars can get away with it, but you want them to give you what you came for, regardless of how they felt when they woke up that day or how much they drank the previous night, right? Now, that's the basic difference. Now, how do you cultivate that, right? The first thing is, okay, now the next thing is that the professional doesn't give up so easily after failures, right? If you are a professional writer, you have to accept that not every day Not every book you write will be a worldwide bestseller. If you're a film director, an entrepreneur, anybody who's been a professional at their career for any reasonable length of time, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 50 years, 60 years, right? Well, one thing is very certain, like they all have had failures, right? And take any company, Google, Apple, take any comedian, Conan O'Brien, Ellen DeGeneres, whoever, whatever, right? Not every episode goes viral. Not every joke goes viral. They still have bomb. I mean, Jimmy Fallon has never been funny to me in general, but even for those who do find him funny, he's not always making you like, rolling on the floor with laughter, right? And what does the amateur do? The amateur expects to be successful, or he cannot do his work if he's not getting success. If he's not seeing progress, he doesn't want to do his work, right? If he had a few bad days, he's like, oh, I don't think it's worth it. I don't know if I want to do this. He starts making excuses. Or he avoids the work altogether, right? And so that's where habits come in, where the professional usually has a sacred space and schedule, a routine and a schedule. And by the way, I don't mean like amateurs who hit it big after working for a few years. No. I'm talking about people who didn't get lucky until they did, right? People who are true professionals, right? Anybody who's had either massive success or they've had a sustained success over the long period, right? Those are the people I'm talking about. Massive as in like best in the world kind of success, right? Not just like, oh, this kid blew up for 1 year, 2 years, and then you never hear about that kid again. They cash out and they're like, oh, I'm done. I was playing around. I had fun. I'm done, right? No, you're talking about people like LeBron James. You're talking about people like J.K. Rowling. You're talking about people like Quentin Tarantino. Any big actor like Helen Mirren, Meryl Streep. So huge out successes or long-term successes, like any working actor in Hollywood, for example, who you've been seeing on screen for like 20, 30 years, but they've never been like a big star, right? Even that is huge success, right? Like, for example, I mean, it's not true for him that much, but take the example of, who's an actor who's been there for a long time but's never been a big star? Let's see. I can't think of one because right now it's early in the morning and all that I can think of are like big stars, but you see those the recurring characters, recurring side roles in movies, right? So anyway, so now let's get to the habits, because habits are really the core of things, right? Habits, we've talked about how the professional shows up regardless of how they feel and regardless of what kind of success they're getting. It doesn't mean they never change what they do, like, or they don't do strategy, or they don't, twist and tweak the things they're doing, but they simply have a routine, right, that is sacred to them. The amateur does not have a routine necessarily. The amateur is like, whatever, I'll work when I feel like it. The professional shows up to perform every day because for them, performing doesn't mean you have a bestseller hit. Performing means showing up and doing your job as a concert musician, as a doctor, as a sports person, which means you're training, right? Doing your job means showing up to do the thing that you're supposed to do that day, right? Regardless of how you feel. And as somebody who's a serial procrastinator, like myself, for me this was a really life-changing concept. Man, it's really early in the morning for me. I woke up at 5:45, and today I'm a little bit sick, so maybe my brain's not working. I feel slow today somehow, but whatever. So yeah, I don't know how I come across in this video. We'll see 5 years later what this video sounds like. Okay, so now let's talk about judo, right? I was supposed to talk about judo. So I am not going to be a professional judoka, right? I don't even have a black belt yet. And I've struggled with judo for many months. And before that, I struggled with judo for a year and a half in America. And now I train in Japan, right? As you've seen in other videos, where I showed you my dojo from the outside. I train at the Kodokan, which is the mecca of judo. And I was okay. When I came to Japan, and when I was like, I'm gonna get my black belt in 1 year, okay? Because you can, and it's legally. It's like based on the rules, there is a way to get your black belt in 1 year. Now most people don't do that because they get injured along the way, and they have to, go a little slower in the end. But I was like, I'm gonna be the one. I'm gonna be the one who finishes in 1 year, right? And getting a black, okay, I'm not sure if you can hear that, it's a train station nearby. Okay, so for me, the goal was a black belt, right? I was like, I need to progress as quickly as I can. I need to shortcut as many things as I can to just clear the rounds and get my black belt. I wanted the black belt more than anything. I wanted what a black belt represented in judo more than anything. Okay? And I did work hard. I was the guy who showed up 6 days a week. And they only train 6 days a week, right? You have Sundays off in judo, and you have 6 days a week of training, an hour and a half every evening, right? And I would show up for that every single day for months. I was the only guy who did that in the entire class. And even the senseis were like surprised, like, whoa, this guy is like intense, And I was going really hard, at judo. And so I was kind of like, I had that turning pro mindset, right? Where I'm just gonna show up and I'm gonna attack every single day. No matter how I feel, I gotta go to judo. I have to say no to friends, say no to people, that's fine. So I had that part done, right? The first part, which is like, it doesn't matter how you feel, you show up and you perform, right? You show up and you train. But I did not take care of the second part, which is that you keep showing up regardless of how much progress you're seeing. And in fact, you are not entitled to progress or to results. You are not entitled to results. You are only entitled to the work, and the work and putting out high quality work is its own reward for the profession, right? I mean, that may not be true, because in some fields, like, you might lose your you might lose your job if you're not getting any results over a long period of time, but you can be a professional in terms of the mindset, even if you're not getting paid for something, by the way. There are many people who are professional long before they get paid for what they do. So just to clarify that. And I wanted success and I wanted progress at all costs, right? I was really frustrated the whole time I was training judo because I wanted to be perfect. And that is the definition of an amateur, right? It's good to have high standards and expect a lot from yourself, but some things take time, and the true professional sees their work as rewarding, not just the results that they would get from that work, right? It's not the black belt that is the real reward. The black belt is a recognition for the work you've put in, right? The work, judo, is the reward, right? Judo is the reward, and black belt is the recognition for your dedication and your, effort in judo. If you're chasing recognition alone, and you don't get any reward from the work itself, you're gonna have a really difficult life as a professional, right? As a pro. So what happened in the end in judo was that I got injured. First of all, I started losing. Often my sensei would say that you need to. Hey, I would ask the sensei, hey, can I take the test this month? I want to get promoted sooner, and the sensei would say no. Right? And in Japan, you don't argue with the sensei. It's like no means no. Sometimes you can ask a question like, hey, you can suggest something. Like, hey, okay, even if you fail, just let me take the test. If I pass, I pass. If I fail, at least I have the experience, right? And once that worked, but usually you want to listen to what the sensei is saying, right? I lost one time. I lost the bout, 2 bouts within 10 seconds each. 10 seconds, guys. And was humiliated. Nobody humiliated me. I felt humiliated, right? Because I put in so much and I lost that badly twice in a row. In my first, test for the third cue. So there's 5th cue, 4th cue, 3rd cue, 2nd cue, 1st cue, and then black belt, right? And I cleared the 5th and the 4th, and then the 3rd cue I lost in 10 seconds in 2 bouts. And then again I lost it, lost again in the next time, and then again the next time, right? So I lost 3 times in a row. And also then, by this time I was also injured. I was injured in my wrist, I was injured in my, knee, whatever. And I had to really take time off from judo. I was forced to not even train. And I really, had to take a break. And, this might sound very, what's the big deal? Oh, it's just judo, it's a hobby, right? Yeah, that's fair, it's just a hobby. But for me, it's a really important hobby, and it's very important to my life, right? And to my personal journey on this planet. So that was kind of soul crushing. I'm sorry to use that word loosely, but it was it was a little bit soul crushing, right? To be so frustrated and to be so bummed out and be like, what the fuck, like, you know. But yeah, the turning pro mindset now, I've been away from judo for 2 months almost, and I finally, you know, realized this idea of turning pro, and I've also realized that all you can really do is show up and get the reward. You have to suck the reward from that day's work, from that day's training, and that day's, you know, to-do lists. Your to-do list should be your greatest source of joy and progress by itself. It should be your source of validation. Oh, there's a parrot. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, these are parrots, yeah. I don't know if you can see the green, but yeah, whatever. Maybe I should, you know, zoom in. Yeah, whatever. Sorry, okay. So there's that, okay? Next thing is, I hope that was coherent. The next thing is about waking up early, right? The next story. And wow, I've never actually heard. I don't remember the last time I heard parrots, you know, in the wild, and so this is kind of interesting. Yeah, for me, it's kind of scary. Parrots are not like, you know, they sound kind of scary actually. Whatever. It's like they're trying to eat somebody or something. I don't know. Whatever, right? So next thing is waking up early. Now, for the longest time, I was the snooze guy, right? Fuck it. And the mental switch I made was that, hey, the wake up time is when I turned pro, quote unquote, I realized that, you know, waking up at a certain time is part of the requirements for me personally. May not be for you. For me, I saw it as part of the requirement for me being a real professional and be committed to my dreams, right? And it was part of my identity. It was part of the requirements of showing up to work for me, right? It was part of the routine. And if you know, like the first requirement of being pro, which is that you show up to work regardless of how you feel that day, you know, if I snooze, then that's an amateur move, right? If you're snoozing, you are not a professional, because by default you're letting your feelings dictate your actions in that moment, when you know that what you're supposed to do is get up regardless of your feelings, right? And so I decided to set a simple, it was actually a simple mental reframe, right? I decided to say, hey, I need to wake up at 5:45, and that is the difference between me being successful and me being a failure, right? I reframed it in the sense that 5:45, waking up at 5:45 makes me a professional. Waking up at 5:46 makes me an amateur. Am I a professional or am I an amateur? Am I going to be, I mean, and also, like, you know, you might not, it might not work for you if you haven't been in pain about the habit that you want to inculcate, right? If you're somebody like, yeah, whatever, I'll try it, yeah, you don't actually care about being a professional or being a pro, in your chosen line of creativity. I'm an entrepreneur, you might be something else, right? If you don't actually want to be a pro, then none of this reframe bullshit will work for you, right? But if you truly want to be a pro, you truly believe that you, are sick and fed up of your excuses and your own bullshit, then this might help, right? At least that's what it was for me. I got to a point where I'm like, this is not who I want to be. Like, and I could talk about vision casting. Like, I saw my vision, and I see my vision as a real entrepreneur, right? And I mean, although I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, I felt like and I've been through some really, objectively speaking, I think I'm pretty much among the, I would say, in terms of the DNA of an entrepreneur, I would feel like I would be in the A tier, not in the S tier, but I would be in the A tier of entrepreneurs, right? But in terms of habits and professionalism, I would say I would consider myself in the B tier. And I want to be an S tier entrepreneur who is sharp as a tack every day, right? Who has, who does those things that they're supposed to do regardless of how they feel, and they perform, right? Being a professional entrepreneur, not just like, living off of entrepreneurship, but like actually being a professional entrepreneur, a real entrepreneur, is a huge part of my vision, right? And I tied that to waking up at 5:45 a.m. every single day. And here's an interesting thing that happened, right? So I set my alarm for 5:45 every day, and this is not an excuse for you to not wake up, but I use an Apple Watch, and it vibrates silently, and so it wakes me up, and I, flip the watch, and I see if it says 5:45, I have to get up, right? Simple as that. If I don't get up, I'm an amateur. It means I don't believe in my vision. I don't care about my vision that much. I've decided to take the wrong path in life, right? And waking up at 5:45 means that I am making a conscious decision every day to show up to work and be a professional regardless of how I feel, right? And so there's only like two options. Like, it's no longer, if 5:46 is not an option, you are mentally, like, then you are on the way, right? For me, 5:46 is not an option. It's not professional. It's an amateur move. What was I gonna say after that? Jesus Christ. I really feel slow this morning. I need some, they say early morning you're supposed to be fresh. Maybe that's in terms of like creative work, but like maybe talking to a camera is not one of those, right? But yeah, that's how oh, sorry, I was going to tell you an interesting story, right? So one of these days, my watch was not charged at night, right? So I knew it would just die on me. So I put the alarm on my phone, set it to vibrate. I don't use sound in my alarm because, other people will wake up and shit like that, right? I don't want to do that at 5:45 a.m. Every morning. So I set my phone to vibrate, in a certain way at 5:45 a.m. And I put the phone in my pocket, And I went to sleep, and I thought, like, the phone will vibrate in my pocket. I will wake up. So I did wake up when the phone vibrated, but I woke up at 5:54, not 45, because even though the phone was vibrating, it wasn't. Oh, by the way, are you still recording? Thank fucking God. Even though it was vibrating, it it was loose in my pocket, right? And yeah, I my body responded slowly or late, whatever. And so here's what I realized, right? Was that a failure? Yes, that was a failure. Even though I didn't realize, or it wasn't like supposedly my fault, like, oh, it happens. No, that's a failure, because when you're a professional, it doesn't matter that your alarm didn't go off. You're supposed to show up to work, right? You're supposed to get up at 5:45. And so here's what my mindset says to me right now, right? Aman, if you know that your phone, your watch, your reliable watch is, might not work, you gotta do two things. Number one, if you're gonna use your phone and your phone's not reliable, then set an alarm next time for 5:30. So you have 15 minutes to get up, right? Set multiple alarms between 5:30 to 5:45. Oh, wow. I don't know if you can see that. Let me actually. You see that? There you are. There are all these parrots you see. Right. Oh, you see that one, right? You see that one? Those parrots, green. Now you see it. And those are dogs. Sorry. Yeah. So, now it's like, okay, the phone vibrating in your pocket or whatever the bullshit you have, right? It's not an excuse for not waking up. I learned that you have to set multiple alarms, do whatever you can to make sure that you show up to work, in my case, to wake up at 5:45, right? And these are the rules that I have now where, like, I have to be at my desk by 8 a.m. and working. I am not allowed to browse the internet or even use the web browser at all unless I have my to-do list tightly planned out for the whole day, and my routine tightly planned out. And all this is not like hustle culture. This isn't like promoting unhealthy lifestyles or like whatever, because if you're an amateur, you don't have to do any of this, right? You only do this stuff if you're a professional. That's what I believe. And another thing that, okay, how long is this video already? Damn, 38 minutes, 39. Holy shit, I'm sorry about that, guys. I hope, like, for the one person still listening, who would listen for up until the 40-minute mark, do leave a comment. I want to know who you are, right? Send me an email, do leave a comment. I'm really interested, or if you know me, if you're a friend of mine, still tell me, hey, I actually listened to the whole 45 minutes. I'm pretty sure, like, barely anybody would be still listening, but here we go anyway. I do this more for documenting, right? Yeah, here's another point that I want to talk about, which is that I want to focus. I want to make probably I think I'll make another video where I talk about the second aspect of being professional in a little more detail, which is that, you know, your relationship with results and timelines and goals, and your relationship with the idea of like how soon you expect progress, right? But I think this video is already too long for that. Anyway, that's the video.